All right, so I'm Sam Basu, and we are live here at Microsoft Ignite 2017, and I'm here with my good friend, Jeremy Likness. Jeremy,
Hey, good to see you.
Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure, I'm a client developer advocate with Microsoft, and I get a lot of questions. What does a client developer advocate do? Am I in evangelism? Really, our mission.
You go to a church.
Exactly. So, really, our mission is to connect with developers around the world and share Azure and all the goodness. We have around 40 members right now. We're technology aligned, so we have people who focus on containers, Linux, front-end development. I'm on the .NET team, but .NET means so much right now, right? There's .NET Core, open source, there's .NET deployments to Azure, we containerize our .NET apps, so I get to work on pretty much everything.
I mean, and Azure is huge infrastructure. Like if you go to the Azure site and just do the drop-down
there's
services,
so many choices.
It's a lot.
Right.
So tell us specifically about a couple of things. So Cosmos DB.
Sure.
It's planet scale, different types of data schemas. Tell us a little bit more.
So Cosmos DB to me is the ultimate realization of that dream that people have been asking me for 20 years in the computer industry, right? How can I set up a database and not have a bunch of DBAs running it?
Sure.
And Cosmos DB is definitely that application that you can flip some dials and set up a database. So a few of the features about it that are pretty exciting is that you can geo-replicate to different locations, and it's literally the click of a button. There's something that I won't get too much in the weeds for, but it's called consistency. And you set your own consistency. So if you want SQL database where it's always highly consistent, you can set that, or you can set eventual consistency. And there's several levels in between, and those deal with how fast data replicates and where you read and write to in your data sets.
So we're getting into like the ACID versus the CAP.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So we don't need to go too far down that. But the other thing I love about Cosmos DB is you get to sort of pick your interface to the database. So if you just need a simple key value store, that's an option for table storage. If you're used to document DB like MongoDB, it'll actually support the MongoDB driver to write out to it. If you're a SQL developer, you choose document DB and you can write SQL syntax. And then there's actually, I love saying this one, there's a graph database and you get to use Gremlin. I know nothing about Gremlin, I just know it sounds cool to be able to use that.
But it's nice for developers to have so much choice.
Right.
Like how you want to store and get your data out.
Exactly.
All right. And then I know that you also work with Azure Functions.
I do.
It's not really serverless, right? Or is
right,
it
no.
Servers? Tell us about it.
Well, so serverless, the whole idea about that is less server. There's less server for me to worry about. The whole idea is that we've got this ultimate evolution where we were building the whole application stack. Then we went to platform as a service and we were loading the web app. Now we can literally just focus on the function. If I have a mixed team, if I have Node developers, if I have PHP developers, if I have C# developers, all of those developers can contribute functions. And then I have a few dials that I can tweak to explain how it scales. But the whole idea, really in a nutshell, for functions is event-driven code. And that event might be an HTTP request, it might be a file being loaded to storage, but you have all these triggers that basically cause something to happen, and then you can isolate the code and scale it out instantly.
And you're only paying for whatever your usage is.
Right, exactly. So just as a great example, I have a link shortener. I wrote my own URL shortening tool on functions on the account that actually charges me. And I run between 2,000 and 3,000 requests a day through the link shortener. It stores the link, I store metrics about it, and I'm paying about 15 cents a month right now to run that service. Not saying that that's everyone's experience, but the first million calls are free, and then there's this complicated measure called gigabit seconds. But when you actually break it down, unless you're doing a ton of processing, it's a really inexpensive way to put apps.
And at that point, if you're making $1 million, you're possibly happy to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So we are in the business of making developers successful. We make UI controls and frameworks for all types of client apps, be it mobile, be it web, be it desktop. How does all of these client-side apps, like how can I use generic UI controls and still leverage some of these Azure functions and things that light up in the back end?
Well, it's interesting because there's two approaches really to that. The first is that everything in the back end is in the back end, right? So you can build your front end experience. But what's interesting to me is that there's more and more options for deploying that front end application. So you can use the tools, the controls you want to build your front end web app. And then you have an option if you want to host it as a static website. If you have dynamic assets, you can deploy it as a web app on Azure. We even have proof of concepts for deploying basically HTML pages and references to the controls in the JavaScript with functions on the front of it. Not saying that's the ideal solution, but it's a solution you can create. So there are just myriad ways, and I would say that what's nice is no matter what drives your back end, you can still connect up to that consistent front end tool, and then you have a plethora of options to host those sites out on the web.
Yeah, and sure thing. And the other thing I like is whenever you're using like generic UI controls, and no matter what platform you're on, be it JavaScript, be it .NET, you guys provide SDKs, so I can consume and use your services.
That's right.
From anywhere. Yeah. All right. So Jeremy, thanks so much for being with us. Good to have you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.